So, hello everyone, and welcome to this webinar. We won't be telling a lot about Raffle today, or at least not the history of Raffle, but we'll walk you through some AI stuff and what is the big fuss about AI, and do we have to be afraid, or can we actually utilize the opportunities? So just a little bit on our side, Raffle, as you know, is an enterprise search, and we are based on the core of AI, and that's also why we know how to utilize AI. And Ole is with me, the co-founder. I am Suzanne Lauritzen. I am the co-founder of Raffle as well. I'm on the commercial part. So many of you have maybe met me before. And Ole is our co-founder and our research officer within AI and is in charge of data science at Raffle, which is our main core and why we exist, basically. So that's Ole. So this webinar is going to be about the development in AI and what is actually happening right now. So Ole, already in 2018, when we met up and we started Raffle, and you will come back to why that was a good time.
Yes.
You already at that point talked about summarization.
Yes.
And summarization is basically what ChatGPT is doing now. ChatGPT is for us just another language model, but we'll be talking a little bit about that because everybody knows about ChatGPT now. But already in 2018, Ole and I was talking about that, or Ole was talking about that to me because I don't know that stuff. So what has happened in those 5 years?
Yes. You know, you kind of promised that it will not be a history lesson. I love to talk about the history of Raffle, but I can say kind of very briefly that when Suzanne approached me with the idea of for Raffle, I could see that in my crystal ball that the next revolution for deep learning would be within text, right? So we already had 5 years before that where everyone was excited about image classification, but next up was text. And actually, the two first hires we had in Raffle, one of whom is still with us, they had done a master thesis with me on text summarization, deep learning for text summarization. It kind of worked. If you squinted a little bit and looked at it, it kind of worked in good cases, but it was not ready for prime time yet. So in the last 5 years since then, a lot of things have kind of become better. So we think now it's ready for prime time, you could say. And what did we do in between those? In that time, we improved search. So you could still, even though you could not write great summaries, you could still use deep learning to improve search.
Yeah, and how does this actually lead into search? Why is search so important?
I mean, fundamentally, if you want to write something, if you want to answer something, you can do it in two ways. You can either let the model kind of memorize the whole world, or you can actually give the model access to information and then let the model write a summary or an answer from that information. And this kind of giving access to information, then it's crucial that it's the right information. So really, search will be at the center of kind of large language models, GPT-like models forever, because you need to have good search results.
Okay, so if we then go back into sort of the AI and what is the big fuss about AI these days, because it seems like for everyone who is sort of just ordinary and like me, sort of from my
semi-expert, yeah.
Exactly, but that's only because I work with it every day. But you know, the same person like I am, just utilizing Google and Yahoo or whatever you use every day. That it seems like right now AI is basically just exploding.
Yes.
But is it, or is it just because we are more aware of it?
I think it is exploding, but of course, I mean, the whole thing about ChatGPT that was released, I think, in October, November, and like it was the app that fastest ever reached 100 million users. I think that has kind of changed the popular perception, right? But now, because now everyone can go in and try and see this often very impressive performance of these models. So I think at least in the public perception, things have changed. I mean, the funny thing is that, the GPT model has been publicly available for more than a year before this, right? And also, like, there's this GitHub Copilot. That product has been around far before ChatGPT came around. So things have been around, but it's only now that in the public perception, it's exploding.
Yeah, and that's maybe the funny part, because we have been utilizing these language models for a long time, or since the beginning, of course, because in 2018, that's where it really became possible to utilize this in the way that we do.
Yes.
So what is a language model?
Yes.
So GPT is just another language model, but what are the other language?
Yeah, now you have asked a question where it's very dangerous that I don't go on a 10-minute rant, but let me try to be brief. So when we started out, we already kind of knew that this idea of kind of changing search from normal kind of word-based match search to something with deep learning was a good idea. So we built our own models, and basically these models take some text and transform this into vector representations. So you can take the text of a question or query, and then you transform that into one vector, and then you take all the parts of your data and transform that into other vectors, and then you correlate these vectors. High correlation means that they're similar semantically, so the meaning is the same. Mm-hmm. We built our own models in the beginning there. Then in 2019, you had the so-called transformer model with self-attention, and you also had Google building this BERT model with transformers. And they did this with what is called a masked language model. And the bottom line is that this masked language model gives you vectors, and these vectors, this kind of BERT model was then kind of what it did compared to what we had done was that this BERT model was trained on a lot of data. Mm-hmm. And that means that if you train on this masked language modeling task, you get representations that are kind of born with, you can say, kind of semantic insights. And that means that once you want to build kind of like a search engine based on this correlation principle, then you get a lot for free. You still have to kind of come up with some training data to improve it, but you get a lot for free. So this is the masked language models. That's where we started, and that's kind of still this principle we use. Now we call it T5. There's kind of a new generation of models, but it's it's still the same principle. Then, sorry, this becomes a rant, but it's important. Then there's the other type of language model, which is these generative language models, and that means that you can give it a piece of text, and then the language model can come up with a prediction for the next word, and then you can feed that word into the model again, and then you can predict the next word, and next word, and next word, and then it starts writing stuff, right? Yeah. And what happened around 2020 was that OpenAI, they really started pushing this idea of training these generative language models. So that's kind of the G in GPT. They train these generative language models on large data sets, and that's the P in GPT. That's a pre-training. So they took the whole internet and started training on this next word prediction task. And this was kind of where the miracle happened, something that I thought would not happen. And I think a lot of machine learning researchers thought would not happen, but some people at OpenAI believed in this, is that if you become really good at predicting the next word, you actually also start to get a machine learning model that kind of understands meaning and can kind of start reasoning about things, right? So it's about scaling up to very large data sets and very large context, very large text that it can look into. And then it starts having these kind of, you can call them emerging properties where it actually can start understanding stuff. Okay. So there's these two different types of language models, right?
Yeah, and you can say that what they sort of cover is the meaning, of course, is prediction, but it's also comparison.
Yes.
And if you understand to model those models into a new model, which we have done at Raffle, of course, with all of our data science all the ones in our data science team, they have basically constructed a model beyond the models, right? Where you can easily take in and out models and try different stuff when things get developed in the market.
Yeah, you can say that we have like a research setup where we can say now we have tried BERT for some years and now we can actually try a different model and we can look at our internal benchmarks and so on to see, does that improve the performance? One concept that is very important for us when we talk about search is this kind of zero shot performance. So that means that we do our things to make the best possible kind of deep search model, vector search model, and then we have internal data sets where we benchmark and kind of we want to understand or we want to optimize how well it works when we give it a completely new knowledge source. So when we get a new customer with new information in that data, do we still have a very good performance?
Yes.
And we have a very kind of, I'm proud of the team. They have a very good setup where they are very good at achieving very good performance.
So we'll come back to that.
Yes.
But now I think, I don't know, but there's a lot of talk anyway. I think it's very important just to touch upon the subject. Should we actually fear language models? Because GPT is, as we've just concluded, another language model. T5 is a language model. Culvert is a language model. BERT was a language model, and so forth. So all of these things are just language models.
Yes.
So should we fear those language models, and why are they so? What kind of influence do they have in the future?
Yes, I think we should fear them, and we should also kind of ask our politicians to act to get kind of the kind of a proper regulation, because I think that once you have technology that can kind of almost mimic humans, right? You have this danger of kind of that we being flooded with information that are just made up by AI, and some agents could actually try to actually use that to manipulate other people, right? So I think for me, as a kind of machine learning researcher, I would say that the most obvious way to regulate this in a good way is to say that every time you meet some information on the internet, it should be clear who is the sender, right? And I think it's fine that the sender can be an organization, a business, or a person, but it should not be just, anonymous senders that can just flood us with information, because we risk that we are completely, encapsulated in information that are not human-made, and then it will kind of make all humans very unhappy, right? So that's kind of from the regulation point of view. I also think that now we have kind of talked about that there are many language models, so it could also be that other organizations than OpenAI could make very nice language models, and these language models could kind of come from a different place, right? We heard about Elon Musk wants to make Truth GPT. That probably is truth, right? So you can see the problem where this can start and end. So I think we should fear language models, and I think also there's maybe also not another fear I would say that is also real is that someone will monopolize kind of these language models, right? If you think about right now, OpenAI they are building kind of nice tools like this kind of plug-in, so you can actually kind of access, for example, in ChatGPT, third-party tools like Wikipedia, Search, or something like that. But that's only something that right now OpenAI can use in their tools, right? I think
so. It's contained.
It's contained, and it's kind of in their universe. If you are a business, a company who wants to kind of have a very powerful search on your site, for example, then you cannot use that, right? And then I think that's kind of where Raffle comes in, and we can actually build solutions that give you kind of the power of search and the power of language models, and it's kind of on your data.
Exactly. So what is important if you want to utilize these AI models that we should fear, because if they are not handled in the right way, they could be potentially, doing harm. So what do we have to do to contain this in a business environment and make them, to make them compliant, to make them secure? Because that is basically what we have done with Raffle.
Yes.
So what is important in that context?
Yes, I think that we have kind of tamed the technologies. And I think there's two important steps to that. One is, of course, that these language models, if we want to build them, as I talked about before, on using kind of proper information that we get from search, then it's very important that this search works well, right? And I think that's what we at Raffle have been dedicated to for the last 5 years. So we have very good search. So that means that we feed the language model with high quality content. And then the second component, and this is maybe a little bit, the business kind of thing and the kind of hard thing to do, is that it's the kind of the output from a language model is very dependent on how you instruct it, right? Mm-hmm. And that's something we have spent a lot of time on, actually instructing it so that it keeps to the facts that it's given to by us, right? And I think that's kind of really a requirement when you build such a powerful kind of conversational tool on top of search.
Yeah, but that's also, and back to your point that nothing is certain here. That's when you don't do these things that we have done. You have to contain it. You have to be very sure that what you do with these language model is is within GDPR standards. They uphold everything that you should uphold. It should never leave Europe. All of these things that are very, very important to build tools for businesses. Also because we have big banks, we have big insurance companies, we have that we have been due diligence of against, in procurement and so forth. So it's very, very important that those tools can actually be contained and very secure. And that is just a risk that you would take if you would just take it off the shelf in your own sort of data science department in-house. Then you have the risk of actually doing things wrong if you don't know exactly what you're doing and if you're not,
Yes, of course. And that's also like when I see my Twitter thread these days, there's a lot of kind of, impressive projects that people do very fast, but they don't address all these kind of issues that will be, of course, very present if you want to deploy this in a business.
So if you just take down tools that are, good for translation or good for, whatever, you should actually be very aware where those tools are coming from. And you should also be aware that you have, contract-wise, that you're not, sending information out in space that will then hit outside of Europe and stuff like that. So that is what we have really...
There was a story recently about kind of engineers at Samsung who actually used ChatGPT to help them with some coding and so on. And then afterwards they thought, oh, no, we are giving very secret code. We're sending it to ChatGPT, right? So you should be careful about that. I don't think there was any leak, but it's just, the mindset of actually using the kind of third party where you don't know where the data will end up.
Yeah, exactly. So I want to talk a little bit about what is the development here. So tie this all into what is it actually that AI do differently when it comes to search? Because we just agreed that search is basically the foundation of using and utilizing if you wanna communicate or on your data, make, for example, a chat on your data. We've made that. So we can show that afterwards. But what is sort of the history elements in this, and why is this important?
I really like your image of the technology change in kind of in communication, right? We used to have stationary phones, then we got the mobile phone, and that's kind of a new image. The mobile phone is like AI search, right? So it's only kind of the beginning because it gives us freedom to actually reach other people, even though they're not by their stationary phone. And then kind of what this graph says is now we're actually reaching this kind of smartphone moment where kind of using the phone for calling is still an important function, but it's only one out of many functions, right? So I think if we look at kind of where we are now, we are seeing so many opportunities to actually build kind of this next generation of features or products that combine very powerful search with language models, right? So kind of we have already completed our first product, which is essentially, we call it Raffle Chat. So it's a model that can where you can actually ask questions to your knowledge source, and you get answers back where you get references, so you can actually click and find the source, and you can ask follow-up questions and so on. We made a small movie here. Can you show?
Yes.
So this is a small kind of movie we recorded, and you can see now we ask a question, and then the language model generates the answer, and you will also
Raffle GPT language.
The Raffle GPT language model, right? So this is kind of Raffle search combined with the OpenAI's GPT API, and you can see the kind of the references. You can hover over those and kind of go and find kind of the source, and you can also kind of go to external pages. The model also generates potential follow-up questions that you can click on, or you can also compose your own question, right? So this is something we have a launch event on the 11th of May, and this is just the beginning, in my opinion, right? There's many other kind of potentials where you can use this, and maybe we'll discuss that a little bit later.
Yeah, exactly. And I think also the fact that it actually, when you see all these references on the screen, then those references basically go down into the search sections. So Raffle search is very, very accurate. It not only finds the right document, it also finds the right section in the document. And those sections, it adds together, delivers it to Raffle Chat, and then it comes out with the answer that is contained into only taking these very accurate answers into account. And that makes this Raffle Chat really accurate and very very on to the spot for the end user, so that they don't have to call customer service, but they actually just get the answers immediately here. So this is but as you said, we have a launch event. I'll just stop it here because then you can see us both. We have a launch event on Thursday, the 11th of May, and you are welcome to write hello@raffle.ai, and we can send you a personal invitation to that event.
And I think maybe it's worth kind of just reminding that since we are feeding the language model with this kind of very limited amount of information, right, then also the answer that it composes will be based on that. So that's kind of our security, that it will not kind of start doing this hallucination that people talk so much about.
Yes, exactly, because this hallucination has been a lot in the newspaper. And why is it that those models can do things like that? Why is it?
It's a very good question, and I love to answer that, because it kind of goes to the heart of what we are doing as machine learners, right? So we are predicting the next word, but we are not predicting it with certainty. We are kind of assigning probabilities to different words. So that means that there are more than one answer possible. And if you think about a language model that has been trained on the entire internet, it cannot memorize everything. So when it's in doubt, it will come up with something that is plausible. And that's kind of one of the things that maybe bugs people's minds most, is that it looks so plausible.
Yes.
But it's not the truth.
It's not right.
It's made up, right? And that's so annoying, because it looks so convincing. If it was just flat out kind of incorrect, XXX, something nonsense, then people would say, okay, it's wrong, and then it's easy to cope with. But now it's so convincing.
Yeah. Yes. And that is a very good point. It's actually how should we, because if you have a bad search beneath, like a traditional search that comes up with the wrong results, then it will also come up with very strange summarizations and answers. And basically ChatGPT, what it does is it summarizes what it thinks is the best answer. And if you don't feed it with the right content, it will come out with, wrong answers. So that's a very good.
And I think you can also, of course, probably someone in the audience would ask, what if the question that is asked is not kind of, there's no information about that in the content, then we have kind of instructed the language model to say, there's nothing there. I cannot answer your question based on the information I have. And I think that's also like this kind of I don't know feature is a very strong feature, right? It's good to admit I don't have the answer, because then people can actually kind of maybe formulate the question a different way, or maybe go somewhere else to find it.
Exactly. Contact support, of course. If the answer is not on your website, for example, and we put Raffle chat on your website, then they should have the opportunity to contact support, because it's too complicated maybe for them to find the answers on the website since you haven't put it there. Yeah. So that's sort of the logic way of getting that out. But can you tell a bit about, now we are sort of seeing the graph before,
yes,
where you can say you can never put an app into a traditional phone, but you can put an app into a smartphone. Likewise, you can never put the newest model GPT or T5 or whatever on top of a traditional search. It just doesn't work. But you can put it on top of an AI-based core search, a vector-based search, or mass search, or whatever. But the thing is, what is the new thing? What are the new features that will come? Now, 5 years ago, you said, well, summarization is going to go. What is going to be the next thing?
I think very kind of the big view is that I believe that these language models will be our new natural interface to computers. Everything we do with computers, will do it with these language models, right? So a computer programmer will start having a conversation with a language model, and then together they will make code that hopefully does the things that the programmer wants it to do. And in the same way, a lot of the tasks we do today will be done with this kind of language model interface, right? So we have also, like, now we have made this, what you just saw in the video, and I think that's something that can be applied in so many places where we have other solutions today, or where we lack a solution today. So one of the things I personally is very excited about is actually to using this in these learning management systems where you have videos, or you have transcribed videos with timestamps, right? Then suddenly kind of the student can go in and ask, summarize what happened in the video between minute 5 and 10. Or the teacher can ask, make questions for the students about what I talked about in this video, and so on. I think that's really exciting, and you can also start using the language model and the information as kind of a learning system where the student can interactively, work with the kind of material and kind of understand, get the understanding, the human understanding.
Yeah. And likewise, the Raffle chat that we just saw before, you could use that, of course, also in customer service to get them the right answer in a human-like way. Yes. And as you talked about the videos, many do have videos that are transcribed, of course.
Yes.
You can also
transcription is a kind of more or less solved problem, right?
Exactly, and that is a tool that we are just now developing and will also launch within the coming 2 weeks. So there's a lot of things happening, of course, in this space for us. We are able to apply it very, very quickly because our core is AI, like an app on the mobile phone. Yeah. So that is the only reason we can actually do it. It's 5 years of work on search that we can now build upon so that it basically gets to be sort of your smartphone of AI.
Can I mention one more application?
Yes.
One other thing is, right from the beginning of Raffle, we have kind of been compared to chatbots, right? And we have always said, no, we are a search engine, because we were not so fond of kind of the traditional chat approach where you kind of make this very tailored kind of conversation flow. We believe now with our Raffle chat, we can replace many of these chatbots, because if you have a chatbot, it could be like a goal-oriented chatbot where you, for example, could have a simple insurance claim, and then the user will have to provide, let's say, 3 pieces of information to file this insurance claim. the language model and our systems can keep track on that and make sure and confirm with the user that this information has been supplied and it's correct, right? And you can do that without a lot of engineering, a lot of work to actually construct these flows, and they're very brittle if there's some misunderstanding from the user side. A language model can cope with that kind of human variation, and I think kind of going in and coming up with a fresh view of the whole chatbot space, I think that's very exciting, and that's something I would like to pursue with our new tools.
But also the fact with a traditional chatbot, you actually basically make a whole new environment of content.
Yes.
Because you rewrite everything in this human-like way, which is what we have now in Raffle Chat.
Yes.
So you have the human-like way, but you have it on your on your own data. So you don't have to reconstruct a whole new data set to actually do that. So that's an enormous amount of work that you don't have to do anymore.
Oh,
it's just getting there, right? Yes, it will. It does. We will talk more about the future of AI in another webinar that we will call in for. And then we'll also talk about another thing that we haven't touched upon today, which is sustainability. Because not many know, or maybe they do know, but AI models are very consumptions. They consume a lot of power. They say basically, or there was an American research saying that if there were billions using, for example, ChatGPT, which is just sort of the public domain of ChatGPT, if billions were using that, America would be out of water within a couple of days. So that's how much water it actually takes to cool down the servers of utilizing AI. And those tools, the tool that we are doing at Raffle is actually sustainable. And we can talk much more about sustainability, because that's actually a very, very important thing. That when you have accounts that you have to do annual accounts every year, you have to have sort of kind of a sustainability stamp as well. So you cannot just utilize things that are just out of context. So that's another very hot topic beside compliance, beside security, of course, which we're also going to touch upon. But I think we'll open up for questions now.
Yeah, let's see.
Yes.
Let's have a question.
Yes. So we have our little chat down here. So if anybody has any questions, please do feel free to ask.
Otherwise, we'll come up with questions ourselves. Okay, here's one.
Yeah.
What does it say? How can we use Raffle? How do I, let's see.
Okay. How can we use Raffle in a way it does not hallucinate?
Yes, very good question. I think we tried to answer that a little bit earlier on. So I think, without giving away kind of business secrets, I think there are two things to it, right? As we discussed, if we provide the language model with kind of content that answers the question, then we make the task for the language model much easier, because then it only has to kind of pick out the right pieces and put that together in a kind of a summary answer. That's one thing. The other thing is that we can also instruct the language model to say, if you don't know, don't try to answer, right? So
yes, and also the fact that it's only on the data that we have access to, which is the company data and the searches, and because the search is so accurate in the background, it actually finds the right information before it serves it to a sort of a predictive model like Raffle GPT.
So Simon asked, in what ways is the Raffle solution sustainable?
But that's another webinar.
It's about being, I would say, kind of the short answer is about being kind of completely aware of kind of what is your energy footprint for every kind of all our servers, right? But I think it's a topic for time.
Yeah, exactly, and we will come back to that. It is actually, as you say, a hardcore number that you can put in, and it's of course built from many different factors. One of it is also scale, of course, that we deliver this service for many companies and many users, but we have very little training going on in the background. But we can come back to that. So Mandy's asking, does it take a lot of effort and maintenance to set up Raffle? No. The great thing about Raffle is that we have, from the very beginning, been very focused on making plug-in features and plug-in products. Of course, if you want to set up an API, you will utilize our API, but the actual core of Raffle works out of the box. And that's what Ole was also talking about earlier, the zero shot. So this is the advantages of having AI-based core because we were able to take advantage of zero shot performance. Which means that if we've never seen data before, there's been no shooting down into, with questions, then we can still very, very high accuracy find the right data because it understands the intent of what you're asking, even if it's just single words, and it also understands the context. So that's a very important point that AI makes it possible. You don't have to do keywords, you don't have to do tagging, you don't have to do all of these things because it doesn't drive on keywords.
But you can also say that if you have specific areas where you want kind of improve the performance, then you can easily add training data for that area. Yes, so Lars asks, how is Raffle chat in comparison to chatbots?
Yes, that's a good question.
That's a very good question, and it maybe set off a rant from me again. No, but yeah, I mean the short answer is a kind of a traditional chatbot, if that's what Lars is referring to. There you have to kind of design like you can say like a decision tree where you say, okay, is this what you want? Yes, then go down this path. If it's this you want, then go down this path. And then in the end, you kind of arrive at your goal. Let's say an insurance claim, then it starts out saying, okay, what type of insurance claims do you want to file? Okay, then I need this information. And then you kind of go on, right?
It's basically like a formula.
It's
so
a formula,
that you have digitalized.
Formula put in a small...
it's not a search.
It's not a search, right? Exactly.
That's basically the problem, right? Because it doesn't really understand.
So you can say that kind of the Raffle chat is a search engine where we where we then put the language model on top, and then in each kind of round of the conversation, we can call our search to kind of get new information relevant for the conversation. And we also kind of supply the language model with the previous turns in the conversation to be a little bit technical. I hope that answered the question. Otherwise, Lars, you have to shoot again. So we have a question here. Our website has a public domain and a business domain. How can you differentiate different questions to different content? A business owner has different questions than public.
Yeah. Well, basically, there are two ways. One is the rule settings that you still have available in Raffle, where you can basically say that these, if you are on these pages instead of these pages, this content has to rank higher than this content. So this is a rule. There's also another way, and that is if you want to separate the content. So you want to say, I have one search function that is only available with the content that is relevant for businesses. That's where that's a search function I would put in there. That I would only call that data. And the other one in the private section, you would only call the data in private. So it depends on whether you want to also have answers available from private in business and business in private, but just ranked lower, or if you want to separate it completely. But both options are equally possible.
Yes. So, yeah, thank you, Lars, for your follow-up question. So, is Raffle chat fully automated? I think the answer will be yes, right? It means, I mean, it's once you have kind of configured kind of your search and your instructions to the language model, then the rest is kind of follows from there, right? So there's, of course, a step of setting it up, but
Yeah.
After that, it's fully automated, right? So let's say you take this kind of insurance claim example from before, then you instruct the language model. These are the things that we need to know and make sure at the end of the conversation that the customer has confirmed that this information has been supplied.
And you can do that through the Raffle tool.
Yes.
Yes. But besides that, all of what we just saw before in Raffle chat, where it basically just answers questions, that is fully automated. It's just like it's on your data. It's drawing up the right answers. It's delivering it human-like with references to these sections and everything. That is also the auto-generated questions that come afterwards that suggest new questions that you could ask if you don't want to key in that question. That's also fully automated.
Yeah. So you can say now, if you go to some of the sites where our search is existing today, and then in our backstage, if we can toggle and enable the chat, it will run immediately. So it is in that way automated. We're just waiting for our customers to say, we want it.
Yeah.
Ready
to ready on the 11th of May.
Yes, just ready the button. Yeah.
Yeah. So how does Raffle tackle questions that the website content cannot answer? Oh, so what do you mean, I guess, Morgan, if we are understanding this correctly, that if you don't have content on your website, but questions are coming in on the website, as an example, it could also be internally, of course, but the content is not there.
Yeah.
Actually, that's a very good question, because normal traditional search function would just come up with no answer.
Yeah, or maybe some random answer.
Or a random answer, yes.
Yeah.
That you cannot really use. And you cannot really use it for analytic purposes either. But what we've done at Raffle, or what we can do, is we can cluster information. So we know when people ask something that sort of runs out of these clusters, or on the side of these clusters of information, and we can see that this is not really, the validity is not very high. This is probably not the right answer to this question. Then it will pop up in analytics as a knowledge gap. And those knowledge gaps are something that we can also cluster. So we can also see, okay, these kind of questions have led to something that looks similar, but it's not on the website. And we have several clients that have been very amazed about this feature, because actually there are things that are pretty obvious should be on the website, but that just isn't there. And you can also utilize it to see, okay, what are because we also have trending questions, which is also clustered information. Then you can also see, okay, from the trending questions, are we actually answering these questions in the right way? Or should we do that better? So there are lots of...
This is another great example of how these kind of vector representations can be used for something more than just search ranking.
Yes, because of the validity, you can actually see...
You can see kind of if there's nothing that is similar. I mean, that's kind of in the technical term, right? We look at the vectors. If there's no vectors similar to these questions, then it's a knowledge gap, right? So the vector representation, the semantic representations help us identify these gaps.
Yeah. All right. I think maybe we are at the end of this webinar. We've also been talking with 5 minutes.
I've just drop all my tea and notice.
Yeah. So thank you very much. And please reach out on hello@raffle.ai if you would like to be invited for the product launch in Copenhagen at Nærvær on the 11th of May. And then we'll also send out some new invitations for the future of AI and sustainability and Raffle and other tools for that matter. Which is a very hot topic as well. So thank you very much, and hope you enjoyed it. Thank you. Bye-bye.